They say time changes everything. I used to believe that until he walked back into my life. Professor Elias Moore. Once the reason I double majored in literature just to hear him speak about poetry like it was a heartbeat. He was brilliant, distant, and utterly off limits. I was 22, driven and naive, hanging on to every word he said like it held a secret just for me. But boundaries were never crossed, only glances, maybe a few too long silences. And then I graduated, and he disappeared. Years later, the roles have reversed. I'm now a guest lecturer, an external examiner brought in to evaluate a prestigious university's literature department. I walked into the classroom, clipboard in hand, and there he was, still magnetic, still unreadable. But now I'm the one assessing his lectures, his teaching methods, his performance. He looked at me the moment I stepped in, paused mid-sentence, then offered a smile, small, knowing, like we were picking up a conversation left unsaid for too long. Was it my imagination, or did he linger near me just a second longer during the break? His voice was calmer now, confident, but there was something in his eyes, a question, a flicker of memory, something unsaid. And then, at the end of the session, as students filed out, he turned to me and asked, "So, how did I do?" I hadn't even opened my notes. He stood there, waiting for my answer, like he hadn't just shattered the illusion of professional distance with one simple question. I should have responded with something measured, neutral. Instead, I smiled. Not bad for someone who used to hand out A's like candy. His laugh was low, genuine, and it stirred something I'd buried long ago. Elias Moore had always been more than a professor to me. He was the first person who made me feel seen. Back then, I hid behind perfect grades and polite ambition. He saw through it, called it quiet defiance in pretty wrapping. And I remembered every word, every moment. But now, things were different. I had built a career, a life, and a reputation of my own. I wasn't here to rekindle old crushes. I was here to evaluate him, objectively. Still, I couldn't ignore the subtle ways the room changed when we were near each other. The way his gaze lingered when he thought I wasn't looking. The way his voice softened when he addressed me, not the examiner, but me. Later that evening, I found a note tucked under my hotel room door. No name, just a line of handwritten poetry. Some things never end, they just pause. It was his handwriting. My heart raced. What was this? An invitation? A confession? Or worse, a test? I told myself to ignore it, to stay focused. But when I saw him the next day, leaning casually against the seminar doorframe, waiting for me with that same unreadable expression, I realized this wasn't just about professional boundaries. This was about unfinished business. The note haunted me. I kept reading it like it held a hidden message beneath the ink. Some things never end, they just pause. What had paused between us? Admiration? Something deeper? Or was I imagining everything? The next morning, I arrived early for his lecture, only to find the department chair waiting for me, smiling but firm. "We'd appreciate it if you kept your evaluation unbiased. Professor Moore is one of our most tenured staff members." It wasn't subtle. I nodded, keeping my expression calm. But inside, the warning rang loud. I was here to do a job, and someone was watching closely. Later, Elias and I crossed paths in the staff lounge. He glanced at the coffee machine, then at me. "Still take it black with cinnamon?" I froze. He remembered. All these years, and that tiny detail, like a piece of who I used to be, still lived in his mind. "Some things never end," I murmured, echoing his note. He gave a small smile, but I saw the storm behind it. It wasn't easy, keeping distance. I wanted to ask, "Why did you?" But before I could, another professor entered, silence snapping between us like a curtain. Rumors had begun. I heard whispers about favoritism, impropriety, power imbalance we hadn't even touched, and already the world was writing its own version of our story. I couldn't afford scandal. Neither could he. But what if the real scandal was pretending none of it mattered? That night, a new note appeared on my desk. Do we finish what we paused, or pretend it never started? I stared at it for a long time, torn, tempted, terrified. The second note didn't just sit on my desk, it pressed on it, like a weight. I read it again and again, each time feeling the walls close in. Do we finish what we paused, or pretend it never started? That evening, I stayed behind after the faculty panel. Everyone had left except Elias. He lingered at the edge of the stage, watching me with quiet intensity. You're making this impossible, I said softly, my voice shaking more than I wanted to admit. I'm not the one who left the note, he replied. Stai?